No kit's complete without a hi-hat, ride, and crash cymbal, and of course, a bass pedal. So let's start by making those cymbals. Now here's the shape that I selected for the cymbals. And I cut the base out of the 1/4" material, Masonite or MDF, whichever one you're using. And here's the pad that goes with it, and you notice it's cut out so that I can have access to those holes. Now this pad is an old juice pad I used to use in the basement, but it still works fine for this application. Here's the piezo element attached to the wires, and you notice there's no jack on the end because I'm going to have to fish those wires through one of those holes. Now as before, I cut a piece of masking tape, place it on to secure the piezo element, and then I use another piece of masking tape to attach those wires and make sure they don't move. Now, just to show you how it works, I'm going to use carpet tape to attach this. But if you're an aggressive drummer, you would probably wind up using the glue, the carpenter's glue. So now I'm putting on the carpet tape in 4 locations, and I have to take off the protective covering on all 4 locations. And when I'm done with that, and it's a little difficult to do sometimes, when I'm done with that, I can throw away that protective covering, and then I can secure the pad to the base by pressing firmly. And now that that's done, I can take that wire and run it through the hole so I can attach it to the 1/4" phono jack that I'm going to install next. There's the phono jack installed. This is the back of the bass, and now I'm going to solder the 2 wires to the 1/4" phono jack. The white wire goes to the ground, and the red wire is the lead. And now that that's done, I'm going to secure that wire to make sure it doesn't flop around. And that's about it. You can mount the cymbal any way you like, but there's a cymbal you can use for a ride, a crash, or a hi-hat. So now let's move on to the foot pedal. And to do this, I'm going to use the 1/2" MDF. And here are the parts of the foot pedal. First, we have a 3.5" wide by 12" long piece of stock. And the second piece that is identical to that was cut down to form that movable foot and the base on the back, which I've already glued to the bottom piece. I'll talk about that square with the circle in the middle later on. You notice I've done a little whimsical thing by making the foot piece into a shape of a foot. Now another piece that is identical to the piece that goes in the back, a piece of 1/4" MDF, which I'll show you where we use it later. Again, the 3" hinge with the movable pin. And you'll see why we need the movable pin in a few minutes. That spring, and that spring should be about 1.5" long to 1.75" long. And for the bass pedal, we're going to need another piezo element, and for the hi-hat pedal, we're going to need that momentary on switch. So the last piece we need is the holder. This holder is made out of 2 small pieces of 1/2" MDF and 1 small piece of 1/4" MDF. And you can see the dimensions here. And that center point is where you would put the momentary on switch, or where you would position the piezo sensor. The 2 side pieces are cut at a 12-degree angle, and the smaller height being 1 inch in height. And then the 1/4" piece is put on top. It's mounted, centered on the base all the way to the end. And then if you use the momentary switch, that'll go inside that space and right in the center, and the piezo element can go near the center but offset, so that when it's contacted, those 2 electrical connections are not hit by the pad, the 1 square pad that comes down and hits it. So next, we're going to start to attach the hinge. And you notice I've cut out an area here so that the hinge lays flush with the bottom of that piece. Now we're going to mount that piece onto the base with a screw. And once we've done that, we're going to mount the hinge. So let's put the screw in first. And then we're going to align the holes in the hinge with the holes that I've already drilled. And screw those 2 screws in, and that part of the hinge is firmly attached to the base. Now let's remove the hinge pin because we're going to now attach the movable foot. So we'll take that hinge pin out, position the hinge there, take that 1/4 inch piece, and then use 2 more screws to attach that portion of the hinge to the movable foot. And let's remount it by putting it together and getting that hinge pin in, which sometimes can be a little difficult, but it'll go in there. Okay, and let's take a look and see how it moves. Moves very nicely. Okay, now that it moves nicely, let's take it out. And I wanted to talk to you about that piece in the center. You notice it's centered around 6 inches back, and the center hole is cut so that the spring fits in, not too snugly, but won't fall out as you're using the pedal. So we put the spring in, let's put the hinge pin back and see how that works. That's good. There's good resistance, so when you're stomping down on with your foot, it'll feel good to you. Let's take that hinge pin out again. And now we're ready to attach the holder there. And remember that I said we can attach either the piezo element or the momentary on switch. Just to show you what's going to happen, we're going to mount that 1 inch square piece of pad onto the movable foot. And it's going to come down and contact either the piezo element or the momentary switch. And here's a completed bass pedal. That was one of my prototypes. And notice how it contacts, but does not contact those electrical connections. So it makes a good sound and sounds really great.